Are you able to hear us?
Perfect, no problem.
Okay, Mr. Montwedi, the department has partnered with a number of NGOs as well as government departments to consult with the communities and other interested stakeholders towards the drafting of an international treaty that talks to the way that multinational companies are operating in the countries where they are, have got business operations. What is the brief background to this treaty? What does it aim to achieve?
Thank you very much. The process here actually has two priorities attaching to it. One, we would like to just ensure that all South Africans who are active in this sector have gotten together to prepare for the treaty process, whose negotiation will commence in October this year in Geneva. And two, the fact that the multinational companies are not held accountable in international human rights law for the violations of their human rights. It's really a vexing subject that is being looked into by the UN human rights system. We, as South Africa, believe that multinational companies have the obligation to maintain uniform standards in their operations, which are transnational in character. It cannot be that these entities in the global north would uphold human rights and in Africa would just operate with impunity.
So how wide do you want these consultations to be? I know that at the moment we're in Gauteng, which is the economic hub of the country, but how further do you want these consultations to go?
Ideally, these consultations should actually, in the form of roadshows, be convened in all the 9 provinces of our country, and in that way coming very close to the communities themselves. Insofar as the extractive industries are concerned, for instance, we would have loved to hear the views of the communities that live side by side with the mining operations in this country, where quite clearly, they are being paid wages that are not consistent with living wages, and to hear from the communities directly.
Tomorrow you are going to Mokopane, where you are going to talk to one such community in a mining town. What are we hoping to achieve from that engagement with the community?
Yes, exactly. The voices of the victims, to hear the voices of the victims, what it is that these operations are doing for social development within the communities. How do they plow back into the areas, the living areas of the employees, and whether social development infrastructure such as public health care, such as schooling for their children, and all these are issues that they are committed to as the corporate sector. So those would be some of the things that we hope to take with us from the Mokopane community.
Okay, lastly, we anticipate that there will be some opposition to this treaty from some of the states that do not share similar views to what is being propagated by the communities and the South African government with regard to this treaty. How are we going to manage that conflict with the other role players, the transnational companies that are affected by this, and also the other governments which do not share the view around the importance of this treaty?
That is actually the crux of the entire treaty process. We are certainly going to have governments not sharing consensus in this area. We have seen that those governments that are hosting these multinational companies, or where these multinational companies are headquartered, those governments are very reluctant that these companies be held accountable for their violations of human rights. We have seen the discordant approaches. We have seen, for instance, with the Deepwater Horizon in the United States, how BP managed to pay adequate remedies to the United States, but they do not do the same where they violate human rights in Africa and elsewhere in the developing world. So at the core of the treaty, it's actually ensuring that uniform standards are applied because they have a transnational character. They operate in different countries at the same time, and they should be able to uphold human rights in a uniform manner where they operate.
Thank you, Ambassador. We are at an event in Johannesburg where the South African government has partnered with several organizations to consult the various stakeholders about the importance of a treaty that they are co-sponsoring with your government. Briefly tell us why it is important for your government to get involved in this process of this particular treaty.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity. I think it's really important because Ecuador believes in dignity of human beings, and we need to provide the legislation and the regulations in order to protect human rights. We believe in that. That's the reason why my country, since 2013, started this process and present this proposal to the Human Rights Council. Fortunately, we got the support of South Africa, that is really important for my country, because this is not easy. It's a very sensitive issue because we are dealing with transnationals and other business enterprises, and they help us, our countries. We need to be honest in that. We need business. I mentioned in the conference, we need business, we need investment, we need trade. In order to fight poverty, to reduce inequality, we need to have that. But at the same time, we need to have all the provisions that we require in order to protect our people. The draft treaty focuses on victims because that's most important for us. Someone asked there about the dignity of human beings, and that's why I'm mentioning this in the first place. We need to be sure of that, and for that we definitely need support of South Africa. And I think it's not important only for Ecuador or only important for South Africa. I think it's really important for the world. We need to have something concrete that is not just soft law. And thank you very much for the question.
Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador.